Righty-ho folks, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the 1:15 safari this afternoon. Running slightly late, we have a bit of a problem further down on the circuit, in as much that one of the vehicles is broken down, but hopefully by the time we get there it should all be somewhat clear. Now, just a couple of safety points, folks, prior to us departing. Should you need me to stop at any stage, please press the emergency button at the front of the cabin, or indeed at the rear of the cabin, in both truck and trailer. However, only press that button in the event of an emergency, folks. Only press that button in the event of an emergency. Please remain seated throughout for your safety and comfort. Please keep your arms in the vehicle at all times. We're going very close to some posts, foliage, etc. Certainly don't want any injuries on the way round. And finally, folks, please do not drop anything over the edges. Obviously it causes a problem for us, but more so for the animals should they ingest it. And I have to say, if you do drop anything over the edges, I'm unable to stop and retrieve it for you. So just do please bear that in mind. And finally, folks, we are a reserve, we're not a zoo. So the animals are not on show 100% of the time. They're allowed to come and go and literally do their own thing. Having said that, off we go. Now, on the left-hand side here, folks, we have our African drill. Now, the drill only comes from one particular area, that's across the river region in West Africa, in between Nigeria and Cameroon. Led by an alpha male. That alpha male is not in evidence at the moment, but should he put in an appearance, he has very distinctive facial features and a very colourful bottom, made up of all sorts of colours, of mauves, reds, pinks and purples, and it's mainly a dominance display. Only the alpha male and female will breed, thus ensuring only the most fittest and vibrant genes are passed on to subsequent generations. You may also notice that this particular primate does not have a prehensile tail, and that's simply so because they're mainly a ground-dwelling monkey, preferring to forage for grubs, berries, etc., found on the forest floor. So on the left here we have some of our squirrel monkeys. We have two lots, basically this contingent here on the left and a little bit further down. We have some more. Now the squirrel monkey only comes from one particular area, and that's the tropical rainforests of South America. These guys normally live in supergroups, anything up to 500 individuals. They are omnivorous, that is, they're insects, fruit and vegetation. And for their size, they are one of the most intelligent of all the primate species, after that of chimpanzees and gorillas. And there's a total contrast to the drill that we've just seen. You may note that these guys do have a very long prehensile tail, which they more or less use as a fifth limb whilst clambering through the trees. They are omnivorous. That is insects, fruit and vegetation. Their favourite meal, incidentally, folks, is the mealworm. They do love a mealworm. coming up on the left here, we have our European grey wolf enclosure. There are 3 individuals in here. They can be somewhat elusive, but they are to be spotted normally in the mid to upper section of the enclosure here. Now, up until about 250–300 years ago, just bear with me one sec, folks. Okay folks, sorry about that. Left hand side, you'll see Wolf Cottage, Rhino Cottage to the right. And both of these cottages way back in the day formed the main gatehouse to the Portland Estate and Mansion. And as you can see, both cottages are finished in the traditional Dutch colonial style of architecture. Now we've just entered the reserve itself folks, and very shortly we'll be going through a series of electronic gates which I shall be opening and closing on the way through. Now clearly these gates are extremely important, they're obviously there for a reason, we don't want any escapees, and I'm sure you can imagine the ramifications of a couple of rhinoceros on the loose in the local area would not be greeted too warmly. Now very shortly we'll be turning right, and once we actually get through this gate here folks on the right hand side, this is where things start to get rather uncomfortable, so to speak, underfoot, and to be perfectly frank, they only get worse from here, but I'll certainly try and forewarn you as and when things do get slightly more uncomfortable. There you go folks, if you can glance up ahead, excuse me once again folks. Okay folks, top right hand side, left hand corner there, you'll see one of our black rhino, one of 14 that we have here at Portland. And that contingent of 14 rhino folks makes it one of the largest breeding herds of rhino outside of the African continent. And as we approach the animal on the right hand side, you'll notice the ears are permanently erect, constantly twitching. That's because they have an extremely good sense of hearing, coupled with a very acute sense of smell. What they don't have, however folks, though, is good eyesight. Their eyesight is truly appalling, and despite their considerable bulk, a fully grown male will weigh anything up to 1.5 tons, these creatures can actually propel themselves on at speeds up to 35 miles an hour. And I can assure you folks that if you're in a car and in a Land Rover with one of these guys coming towards you at that sort of velocity, you've got a major problem on your hands, you really have. Now normally during the summer months the rhinos within the park here can be found literally coating themselves in mud. They do this for 2 reasons: A, it acts as a form of suntan lotion, and B, it helps keep flies and pests at bay from various sensitive parts of the animal's anatomy. And I'm sure you good folks are all aware that over the past few decades the rhino has become increasingly scarce in the wild. That said, of late its numbers are gradually improving, but a long way to go yet. And once again, I'm sure you're all aware that the rhino is hunted or poached primarily for the rather misguided medicinal benefits of its horn. Now when you consider, folks, that that horn is made up of exactly the same substance that our fingernails are produced from, it makes a complete mockery as to why those magnificent creatures are culled in such a brutal fashion. And as we progress through the park this afternoon, folks, you'll see a lot more of our black rhino scattered about at various intervals. Now, directly up ahead here, folks, we're just about to enter the South American enclosure. It's a very small little enclosure we have here with 4 distinct types of animal. And as and when and if they present themselves, I'll certainly point them out to you. And just very briefly tell you a little bit about them. Just on the immediate left there, folks, halfway up the bank, you'll see some of our vicuna, very closely related to the llama, or indeed the alpaca. And these guys come from the high Andes area of Peru. They're led by an alpha male, as is mostly the case with the animal kingdom. The only difference here, folks, is that that alpha male will have with him at any one time anywhere between 15 and 20 ready breeding females. So, as you can imagine, a rather busy individual. Also up on the bank there, and I don't know whether you can just spot them, slightly higher up from the vicuna, you'll see some of our capybara. Now the capybara is essentially the largest rodent in the world, for want of a better description. It's basically a giant guinea pig. Only difference being slightly longer legs, and these guys weigh anywhere between 35 and 65 kilograms. Highly social animals, normally found in groups of up to 100. We've got about 25 to 30 here at the park. Now folks, right hand side, an extremely important animal, one of 2 that we have here at Lympne. Very rare, very scarce animal, and this is one of 2 of the great white and southern rhino. White rhino is only found in southern Africa, in particular Botswana, South Africa and Namibia. And the white rhino, folks, literally is twice the size of its black rhino cousin. Fully grown white rhino will weigh anywhere between 3 to 3.5 tons. It also has a slightly larger horn. And the white rhino, folks, the most disturbing element about this particular creature at the moment, would you believe less than 15,000 of these animals left in the wild on our planet today. Quite a shocking statistic. 2 here at Lympne as part of our ongoing breeding program, and hopefully in the fullness of time, should they produce offspring and their offspring produce offspring, eventually will be returned back to their natural environment. And whilst we are here, folks, I don't know whether you can see that log or tree trunk just the other side of the rhino there. The other day, incidentally, that tree trunk weighs about 3/4 of a ton, and the other day this guy was literally tossing that tree trunk around like it was a twig. Absolutely huge amounts of power. The left hand side we have our spectacled bear enclosure. It's the largest spectacled bear enclosure of its type in Europe, and there are only 2 individuals in here. Hence, once again, they can be somewhat elusive. But the male weighs about 130 kilos, the female's about 25% lighter. It's the largest carnivore in South America, but that said, its diet is predominantly vegetarian. But they are in there somewhere, folks. So just on the right hand side here, folks, on the apex of the bend, you'll see some of our Asian wolf buffalo, or water bison, from Southeast Asia, in particular Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand and Laos, as well as the Indian subcontinent. Also on the right hand side, folks, you'll see three of our Bacterium Camel. Bacterium Camel comes from the Gobi Desert region of Asia. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that these particular breed of camel have two humps, rather than the one hump of the Arabian or the Drongo camel. This particular breed of camel can actually go up to 3 months without imbibing a single drop of liquid. That said, when it does take in more water, it can consume anything up to 30 gallons in a single sitting. Also on the right there, folks, bottom of the paddock there, you'll see some of our access deer. The access deer is found in central but more so southern India. To the left hand side in the adjacent paddock, you'll see some of our Tarkin. And the Tarkin is essentially a cross, a hybrid between a goat and an antelope, only found in the foothills of the lower Himalayas. Quite a formidable creature. It can only be kept with its own species, as it's rather aggressive towards other animals. You can't really see from this distance, folks, but has a pair of very small, extremely sharp horns, which, given the mind to do so, these guys can do an awful lot of damage. Now, just about to drop down the hill here, and very shortly we'll be turning left into the Africa experience. And to do that, we'll be going to the right-hand side of the Giraffe House, just coming up on the left here. And I think it's worth mentioning at this point that that Giraffe House was actually built and constructed by the donations of Vic Reeves, the TV comedian. And thinking to relatively recently anyway, just used to live down the road in Aldington, and over the years he's been a great supporter of the Aspinall Foundation. Now very shortly we'll be going through a series of double gates and airlock up ahead here. They all seem very much belts and braces and over the top, and over the top it is. There's some very dangerous animals in here, like rhino, so hence all the precaution. So we'll be going in via gate 1, then gate 4, which is the double gate. Once we're on the other side, we'll pause whilst it closes automatically to our rear, and then we'll be dropping down through gate 2 on the right hand side into the actual reserve itself. Okay folks, I'm sure by now you've already spotted our family of giraffe on the left hand side here. And the collective name, if you're not aware, for a group, family or herd of giraffe is called a tower. Our tower literally consists of the alpha male, the daddy giraffe, who has 2 wives and 3 children. And I'm sure you good folks are all aware that the giraffe is Earth's tallest terrestrial creature. Full-grown male will reach heights of anywhere between 18 and 20 feet. Both sexes possess those very small stubby horns, see there, which they use both offensively and defensively. What they tend to do is swing their neck and head into each other and more or less use their head and neck like a sledgehammer to great effect. Out of the 2 sexes, folks, it's the female giraffe that is the most aggressive. Another very interesting fact about giraffe whilst we're here is the fact that they only ever sleep or nap or slumber, call it what you will, for 5 minutes at a time. They never fully fall into a deep sleep, and this is an evolutionary trait, simply and solely because the giraffe is so ponderous it needs lots of time to react to potential predators, so it just merely naps, never fully falls into a deep sleep. And despite their very gangly appearance, giraffe can actually run at speeds of up to 35 miles an hour. Now normally this time of year, as you can see, the giraffe are kept very close to the Giraffe House. They're not allowed into the reserve itself. As you can see underfoot, it's very wet, very slippery, very muddy. And you can well imagine, should they fall over and break those very long, slender legs of theirs, they're in a great trouble. It's not like us, where should we break a limb, we just put in a cast. Unfortunately, with a giraffe, they have to be euthanized, so clearly they're kept very close to the accommodation this time of year. Wait for the gates to close behind us, folks, and once that's happened, we'll be on our way. Okay folks, what we have here in front of us is 250 acres of undulating grassland and pasture, where the animals are at total liberty to do their own thing. So once again, as we pass through here, I'll certainly try and spot and point out any animals we come across, and just very briefly once again just tell you a little bit about them. Now this is where things get very bumpy, folks, so especially for the youngsters on board, just be aware, don't want any bumped heads or anything like that. So here we go. Suddenly immediate right here we have a couple of red lechway, a mid-sized African antelope, and once we actually come across the main body of the herd, folks, I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Just coming up on the left here on the ground, and indeed just on the right hand side, the larger antelope. These are African eland, one of Africa's largest antelope. The two have just gone past, or about to go past. They are adolescent female. The actual alpha male, folks, is literally twice their size. Very impressive animal indeed. He will weigh anything up to 1,100 kilograms. And should we be fortunate enough to spot him on our trip through here this afternoon, I'll certainly point him out to you. Now normally this time of day, folks, most of the animals are to be found in the mid to upper section of the reserve here, and that's where we're going fairly shortly. Once we do get up to the top, you'll be able to gaze down and enjoy a really good panoramic view of the whole reserve, and hopefully most of the animals will become apparent. Notwithstanding the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, the animals are at total liberty to do their own thing, come and go as they please. So it is really a case of potluck as to what we do see on our travels through here. More lechway on the left and right hand side. And just coming up on the right hand side, folks, about 70 metres up ahead, pretty rare antelope on the endangered list, and this is a southern African molesbok. Very distinctive facial features, as you're just about to see. and those very prominently curved antlers. Now the blessbok is only found in southern Africa, in particular Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Angola, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Now whilst we are in this particular neck of the woods, so just a bit of quick local history for you, for those that could be interested. If you care to glance out here on the right hand side, the other side of the metal rhino barrier, the very tallest of those trees you see here this afternoon on the right there would have been sea level, this exact spot, some 1500, 2000 years ago. For those of you not exactly au fait or familiar with the area, the current seashore lies approximately 1.5 miles to my right hand side as I currently speak. Another one of those blessbok on the right hand side here. Folks, we'll be starting to climb to the top of the reserve here, and to do that we'll go to the right hand side of the animal house, just coming to view over yonder there on the left. And I'm sure you good folk have already noticed we have a very old 1975 army truck, and we have quite a bit of weight on board this afternoon. We also have an extremely steep hill in front of us, so we'll literally be going up the hill here at snail's pace. And I do mean snail's pace, folks. We're literally crawling up the hill here. In many instances it would probably quicker to walk, but there you go. The engine noise will get extremely loud, and our progress up the hill will be very slow and tedious, but don't be alarmed, we will get there. So you probably won't be hearing much from me now for the next 5-6 minutes or so until we get up to the top of the hill, unless we come across something fairly interesting on our ascent. Now before we do fly up the hill, so to speak, just on the immediate left there, we have some more of our African eland. You may recall one of Africa's largest antelope. Once again, these are adolescent females. The male, the alpha male, normally likes to occupy the high ground. He is probably somewhere way up here on the left-hand side, keeping a really good beady eye on his herd, but of course, most importantly, his breeding females. And at the slightest hint of a male interloper pitching up with the intent of covering his females, well, he'll be down here in a flash to sort them out and chase them off. You may also notice on the left there, folks, we have a pure white or indeed an albino red lechwe. We have about half a dozen here at Port Lim. They are peculiar to Port Lim. It's a bit of a genetic throwback that's taken place here over many generations. Right, here we go.
Alright.
the eland herd on the left-hand side here. Now, I wouldn't normally stop here, folks. As you can imagine, quite difficult to get this beastie going here on the hill. The immediate right, disappearing into the undergrowth, those are African hunting dogs, or African painted dogs, as they're sometimes referred to. Beautiful markings, beautiful colours, as you can see. Very hyena-looking in appearance. Now, that said, not related to the hyena at all. These guys are related to the wolf, and they're not called African hunting dogs for no good reason. Their good looks belie their true nature. These guys are literally born killers. They're extremely good at what they do. Essentially, the top dog, or the alpha dog, will pick out its target or quarry, give chase with the rest of the pack in tow, and as and when that top dog should run out of aim, the next dominant male in the pack takes over, and so the chase continues until such point that the quarry is totally worn down and eventually dispatched. Now, the success rate, we believe, once that top dog at a target, is in the region of about 90%, quite phenomenal. If you compare that to a lion or a cheetah when hunting, that average success rate is anywhere between 30 and 40%. So I think it gives you just a really good indication just how capable and tenacious hunters these guys are. And incidentally, folks, just here on the left, I don't know where you can see, but the eland with the yellow tag in his ear, to the left feeding station, that is the top boy, so to speak. By no means fully grown. He's probably got another, I'd say probably another good 6 or 7 inches in height to grow yet. To the reserve now, and I'm sure you've all noticed the spectacular vista that's opened up on the left-hand side, that huge flat expanse of land. Of course, once upon a time all seabed is Romney Marsh. famous for three things: potatoes, lots of sheep, and once upon a time, quite prolific smuggling. Now back to the animals, and down there on the left, I don't know if you can see them, about 60 centimetres away, you'll see some of our Chapman zebra. Now the Chapman zebra differs slightly from the normal zebra in as much as its rump or flank. It's actually a light brown or light yellow in colour. It's not totally black and white as you might expect. In terms of stamina and staying power, there's very little that you can compare zebra to. Has a very solid bone structure, a very dense muscle mass, and fully grown zebras literally capable of running at 30 miles an hour all day long, non-stop. The collective name for a group, family or herd of zebra is called a gazelle or a zero. Just coming up on the right hand side here, folks, some of our ostrich, 2 of 5 that are in reserve. The birds you see before here on the right, these are both male birds, and the reason I know they're male birds, folks, is simply and solely by the colour of their plumage. The male bird is a very dark brown, chestnut brown or black in colour, whereas the females are very light grey or light brown. Now, contrary to popular belief, the ostrich is a natural aggressive creature. In fact, it's one of the most aggressive creatures in the animal kingdom, believe it or not. And I think that can be best summed up and described by the fact that if you care to have a look at the size of the ostrich's body, you then compare that body mass to the size of the head, well, without disrespecting the animal too much, not a great deal happening upstairs, and as a result, upon occasion, the bird can be extremely aggressive. Has 2 very, very powerful muscular legs. End of those legs is a talon or a claw, about 8 inches in length. Now, should you be unfortunate enough to get a kick or a snipe from an ostrich, you'll certainly be hospitalised. No two ways about that. They have been known to take out lion, believe it or not, in the wild. In terms of nest building and procreation, it's the male bird that does all the DIY. He'll find a suitable spot to build a very elaborate nest, and having done so, we'll then proceed to do some very fancy footwork, ruffling and displaying of feathers in order to attract various other female ostrich to his nest. I say female ostrich in the plural, he will mate with up to 3 or 4 birds at a time. And most bizarrely, or bizarrely to us anyway, all those female birds will lay eggs communally within the single nest, and during the day each female will take it in turns to sit and incubate those eggs. Overnight it's the male bird's turn. On the right there you'll see the herd proper of red lechwe that I alluded to a lot earlier. The lechwe only comes from one particular area. that's in southern Africa, in northern Botswana, in the Okavango. Now these guys are very clever. What they tend to do is hang out in shallow swampy water in order to avoid the predation of the big cats. I'm sure you're more than aware that as a general rule, cats do not ordinarily like water. So what better place to hang out and feel relatively safe than a foot or so of swampy water. You also notice a couple of more albino on the right and one just here on the immediate right. And you can just see how stark they are against the greenery. Had they been born with that coloration in their natural environment, they wouldn't be with us today. They'd be taken out by predators. As you can see, they stand out very starkly against the greenery. And that's the top boy zebra there, folks. And as I mentioned earlier, most of the alpha males, they like to occupy the high ground so they can keep an eye on the rest of their herd. Well, the second part of the hill here, folks, does get extremely bumpy, so once again, for the youngsters' benefit, just be aware. Okay, it's going to get bumpy, folks. What I'll do, folks, traffic permitting, and of course if the giraffe are there, I'll just hop by the Giraffe House here for those of you who wish to take a photo, who perhaps didn't get the chance on the way through, can clearly do so. left-hand side here, folks, we have some of our European buffalo or European bison. And these creatures were hunted to almost total extinction during the 1917 Russian Revolution, the flesh of which was used to feed the Russian troops, roughly 25% smaller than their American counterparts, still found in the wild today, albeit in very reduced numbers, to the far east of Poland and indeed into Russia. Just on the left-hand side here, folks, coming up, we have our lion enclosure and our private lions just here on the left-hand side. As you can clearly see there, folks, the lion, 3 lionesses and 3 cubs.
Stop. Stop.
On the left-hand side, for the next couple of hundred metres or so, we have our silverback playground. And as you can see, lots in there to keep them occupied and busy. Being such highly intelligent animals, they do have a tendency to get bored extremely quickly, so hence all the entertainment. Now, the adults are normally kept in this area for just half past now, and they're a little bit further up ahead, 30-40 metres or so, is where the juveniles are normally kept. They are kept separately, they're all kept together, being mayhem, the place, and essentially what tends to happen in guerrilla society, once a young silverback gets to its early teenage years, the testosterone starts to rise, and he will eventually want to challenge the supremacy of the alpha silverback. And at that point, folks, one of 2 things will happen. They'll either fight. If they do, a very bloody battle will ensue, or indeed if they don't, he'll go off, do his own thing, create his own family, but that still involves stealing other female silverbacks from a rival male. So either option, not an easy one, and of course a fully grown silverback